Oi, oi. Welcome to another episode of Thru The DAW, the official Broken Bricks podcast. I'm Yewzi. I'm a producer, composer and writer for the band Broken Bricks. In this podcast, we talk to music industry professionals about how they built their career, and we get some hints and tips to help you along the way with creating yours. In this episode, I got to sit down with a guy who's got real good knowledge about all different areas of the industry. He runs his own management company. He works in music schools teaching. He tours with a mathcore band as a guitarist, and he's got his own solo project out called Lift, and it's kind of an electronica type vibe. I highly suggest that you go and check it out. He's got an album out called There Is Beauty in Everything, which released very recently, a couple of weeks ago, and it's blowing up nicely. So this guy's called Daniel Stevenson, and he's a wonderful guy, and I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This is the Broken Bricks channel. We've also got some more Broken Bricks fun stuff coming down. We've got a new release called Tapestry coming out on the 9th of July, as well as some other goodies coming down the line. And yeah, so subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform it is that you're listening to us on, so that we can share with you the new episodes that are coming out. That was easy to say, wasn't it? Right, enjoy. Goodbye.
Awesome. Well, welcome on to Thru The DAW, man. Thank you so much for reaching out to us and getting in contact. It's should I say this? I was going to say it's refreshing to receive something that is genuinely up my street.
Oh, nice. That's good.
I'll word it that way.
Yeah, I'm always worried about sending stuff out to people that I don't know firsthand because, I don't know, I worked in management for so long that you just get handed so much crap, and you're like,
and sometimes it's not even crap per se. I mean, you can hear the quality in things, or you learn how to do that, but this was genuinely also completely up my street, you know, in terms of what I would sit down and listen to. So it's just like, okay, this one's a nice easy chat then.
Nice. Oh, that's good. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I've liked the podcast for ages. I remember when the Dan Lasac one came out that I saw it at first, and then kind of went off it for a bit, and then I saw Adam on. I was like, I'm just going to piggyback.
Yeah. You know, we're kind of getting better now. We didn't really like the whole Zoom thing. And we were trying to figure out the dynamics of the podcast, like what is it we're trying to do? It really started out because me and Warren talk to musicians all the time in the pub, and we just chat this stuff anyway. And we were like, should we just hit record and start putting it out? And that was it. So, and then obviously the pandemic, and I moved to Jersey, and Warren's still over in London, and it just separated us up. So we kind of it went on a hiatus for a little while. And then I just missed it, man. I need to start speaking again to musicians.
It's so good.
And stuff. Yeah, it's ace. I love it.
You need to geek out a bit about things that you love, whether that's like music or cars or whatever. Like you need that time to just indulge in it massively.
Yeah. You know, and we still make our own music. So the thing is kind of morphed into me and Warren kind of hosting it. We've included now our singer, because me and Warren created an album with a really good vocalist called Christiane. So I just figured, well, we'll bring her in. She brings like the female element to it, and then we can just host it. It could be hosted by the band, so it's kind of like cross, promotion type of thing.
Yeah. Nice.
So now it's taken on that kind of thing, but trying to figure out diaries and stuff, especially with singers.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. It's so difficult, like managing any adults. Like you think it's tough with kids. Wait till you've got 3 adults. That's
especially if they're musicians. So what you normally get now is you either get me, or you normally always get me, or you get Warren, or you get Chrissy, or so whatever. But yeah, today you've got me. But yeah, no. So thank you for sticking with us and listening. Then
no worries,
it's awesome. But we've actually just, Adam was the last one we put out, but we've got, I think, about another 4 or 5 in the bag that are already done that we haven't just put out yet. So and interestingly, a few of those have come from Adam conversations. So Anime, She's a female producer. Was on a couple of days ago. She used to go to college with Adam.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and she works with Little Boots, who I also I come from the same sort of little village as Little Boots. So it's this kind of like weird, small world type of chat. So it's funny. You have one conversation with Adam, and then all of a sudden it branches off into different things. But
that's the beauty of having these podcasts, is that you're never more than like, it's the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever. Like you're never further away from someone. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. So so again, thank you so much for sending it over. And I guess for me, it was like I sat down to listen to the album, and I thought I'll just make some notes, and I found that I couldn't, because I just wanted to listen. Like sometimes, I don't know if you ever get this, but I can't really work. If I'm like typing something up, I'm doing something, and sometimes I have to have like crap music on in the background. I can't have something good on. I can't have like Radiohead on, because I'll just stop.
Yeah.
And I'm just tuned in, and I'm not doing my work.
Yeah, I'm the exact same.
Yeah. I can have something like whatever on, and I'll be okay with that. But the last album that I listened to that did that to me was probably BC Camplight. I don't know if have you ever heard of him?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, you should check him out, man. I mean, it's probably more aimed at more regular radio play, perhaps. I think you're probably more kind of like I don't know, maybe he's floating around. You're more Six Music. He's probably more floating around, the more palatable stations, perhaps. That's supposed to be a compliment, by the way.
No, I took it as a compliment.
But it's one of those like stop and listen. You can't like hoover the house and have it on in the background. It's one of those. Where's my headphones? And
Mm-hmm.
So man, I was just impressed with how many layers there are. The fact that it's so unpredictable. I'm talking about your album now. The stops, the starts. It just keeps you guessing. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I'm glad
well done.
Had that impact. Cheers. Yeah, that was the completely the point of it, really, musically, I suppose, was to kind of get a bit of that sort of reaction. So it's been amazing to hear. It's not even been out for a week yet, and I've had so many emails and messages with that same kind of thing in mind. The word unique keeps getting flown around.
And
that's amazing,
which is hard nowadays, right?
Exactly. Yeah, really, really difficult. Like I'm a music composition lecturer, and I don't consider very much to be unique anymore. So when I hear that coming from people that I've admired for years, it blows my mind. I feel so happy that it's had that sort of reaction. So it's amazing.
And it kind of takes me to different places. Like there's Tom York in there, but there's also have you listened to Tyondai Braxton?
I haven't. Oh, interesting. I'm writing down all these names.
Check Tyondai Braxton. So it's Tyondai BA and then surname BRAXTON.
Cool.
Shit, I did a bad job of that.
Yeah, that's all right.
Tyondai Braxton. So he, the band Battles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So when Battles first started, they had a vocalist, and he was a vocalist for the band. But as soon as they started getting big, he jumped out and because he's just kind of like this like quirky, weird kind of guy who just likes to fiddle around with like synths and stuff. He doesn't want to be in a big band, which I found quite impressive. But he does his own stuff. So I don't know. There was like elements of that in there, which is interesting that you've never heard of him.
Yeah, is he pre-Mirrors then? Because I've kind of listened to them post all of that, but
it was on the first album. That was Mirrors, right? The first album. Yeah. He's on that one. Yeah.
Oh right. Okay. Yeah. I've not really seen his name around.
Yeah. He had like the effects pedals on his vocals, like and doing all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But that was him. Yeah.
There's a human that did that. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I think on the video for is it Atlas? I think it is, or something like that. That he's on that pedal going and singing it. Yeah, but he's a freaky dude. But he does some like multi-layered kind of stuff, and it kind of reminded me of that. And also there's a band that I was like, not a band, a producer that I was wigging out on ages ago called No Such Thing. You ever heard of that guy?
Don't know either.
Yeah, check that out as well, because it took me straight to that. I was like, no, and then obviously Apex, there's elements of like Apex in there, and the Bjork stuff. So Yeah, man. How's the reception been then? I know it's obviously early days. You've had the single out for a little longer though, right?
A wee bit, yeah. So I'll maybe give it a vague background just for anyone that doesn't really know. So I'm inherently actually from quite like a kind of punk and hardcore sort of background. So I play in Frontier and used to play in Sections, so much more akin to like Meshuggah and Dillinger and
Dillinger, interesting.
Yeah.
We were talking about Dillinger to Adam.
Yeah, that's right. I thought.
Is that? Yeah. Of course, yeah.
And so yeah, my background has been touring in that band for like 5 years now.
Nice.
But yeah, like I said, I've got a music degree and like trained in teaching and stuff. So yeah, I basically was kind of at this point where I needed to have a little bit of a kind of musical palette cleanse and change and stuff. COVID obviously wiped all my touring for the year, and I had all this kit at home with no schedule. So yeah, at that point I was kind of like, right, I need to just kind of like use the time wisely. And a whole bunch of things kind of happened in my life and kind of put me in a spot where I kind of needed music as a distraction. And then yeah, things started happening where it was sounding kind of unique and then sounding quite good, and then I'd kind of piece it all together and eventually came up with a handful of songs I was quite happy with. Got an idea about some collaborators that I wanted involved, and I knew Adam a little bit. I used to manage, and so I watched You From Afar, kind of bigger kind of post-rock sort of band.
Yeah.
And Adam did some work with me with them, and so yeah, I've seen him drum a million times or something with like Deftones and Dillinger, man. And like all these phenomenal bands.
Yeah.
And so I knew he was going to be on it. I needed someone that would kind of add an element of like that obscure sort of like in the realm of breakbeat into jungle kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I wanted someone separately that was very specifically that. So that's where Ian Maciat comes into afterwards.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so that kind of culminated into the first single, Zower, and then Rolling Stone premiered that on the 23rd or 4th of April, just past. And that reception was really good. But something interesting that's kind of happened off the back of that is a lot of people said that it was kind of difficult to make sense of what was to come based on that one song, which is fair. I just hadn't thought about it because I had had the record for nearly a year at that point. And so when the full record came out, a lot of people were saying to me like, this makes sense now, this whole track, like it fits in with a body of work instead of like a random sort of like push-pull beat sort of thing.
I quite like that random thing though. There was a I don't know if it's a band or producers, but they came out. It was like they hid behind the identity of it, so no one knew who it was. And what the hell was it called now? I think it was Invisible Minds.
Okay, cool.
You ever heard of them? Invisible Minds. And they did a similar kind of thing. Like they refused to say who was in it, so there's this big old like, and then they just released this one track, and it's like. But there's no like, there's no story to it. There's no backstory. They don't know who's in it, and everyone's going mad for it. And it's a really cool tune. I can't remember what the tune's called, but it was a while ago. And then they brought the album out. I think that they've shown their faces now and stuff. But nice. I quite like that approach.
Yeah, I like the mystique. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's very cool sort of way of doing things.
Yeah. So where did it all get started for you? Way back,
like musically, or just this record, or
no, as in like younger version of yourself.
Yeah,
decided music was the thing.
Yeah, fairly broad. So I was born in Scotland, and then I moved to South Africa at a really young age. And I lived in South Africa till I was like 7. And so my first sort of like first-hand experience with music was very like roots and rhythmic based sort of indigenous music. So I've always been really drawn to rhythm from a young age, and so I think that was always just something in the back of my mind that I just, and you can hear it in this record, it's just like I just love like manipulating rhythm and using it as a kind of as a hook almost. And so I moved back to Scotland when we were like 7 or 8, and then I have an older brother that's like 12 years older than me, and so when he was in his teens I was really kind of young but impressionable, and he started out loving like techno and happy hardcore and stuff, and at the time I didn't think I liked it, but now I look back on it, it's actually had a massive influence on the way that I kind of listen to electronic music. And then he kind of evolved into like grunge and stuff, and so he gave me like a big wad of CDs of like the Pixies and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains, and that just started this kind of journey of like subculture music for me when I think I was like 13 maybe. And then I found a guitar, obviously, learned how to play all of Nevermind. And then I was just like absolutely hooked on that whole idea. So I never really had another path in mind. I ended up studying music at college after high school, and then I went to university to study it. And then I took a couple of years out to go and travel and busk around like Australia and just kind of do odds and ends.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I was like really ready to kind of get my teeth into the industry. It was like 2012, I think. And then, I basically just been in touring bands and managing bands ever since, until about 2 years ago. And then I started lecturing at a college up here in Aberdeen. And now I lecture like composition, performance, and instrument tuition, like everything
nice
within that music sort of umbrella. So it's been my whole life. I've refused to do anything else.
That's awesome. And I guess like you really sort of spreading the tentacles out in terms of, lots of different aspects of it, which is really great, because you're getting a different flavor. You're teaching people, and you've got that tour element as well, and also
interesting.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of difficult to peg you to a genre, really, in that regard.
A little bit, yeah. I was really apprehensive about this whole record, to be honest, because I never actually I never set out with the intention to release music. I set out with the intention to write a record, and then I would see what would happen. So, it was a really difficult thing to kind of rein it in a little bit, and because I've been kind of stuck with one genre touring for the last like 5 years, I was really desperate to do as much as I could, but without it sounding unnecessarily like narcissistic. I think you could be guilty of trying everything just to show off that you could, and I didn't want that to be the case. I needed it to serve the song. And so in some cases there's like the big expansive kind of post-rock thing, and then in other songs there's like the chaotic sort of Aphex sort of thing, and then in others there's like the Sigur Rós big string sort of idea. So really had to try rein it in. I think I could have gone much wider if I didn't pay attention to it.
I think Adam was saying something kind of similar, because he's got that kind of formidable sound. That's you could kind of watch him and go, is he showing off, or is he adding value to the song? But actually, he's deliberately pulling himself back in order to do that. And I think it's quite a tricky thing to do. But what's your kind of approach then? I mean, where do you come up with an idea and then develop it? Are you picking up a guitar and coming up with some stuff, or are you making beats, or
it's a good question. So it really depends on what it is that I'm trying to like achieve with the song. So my process generally with a piece of music is that I want to work out exactly the feeling that I want to get across, and that can usually inform which instruments I can use based off of that. But for me, it's really about thinking at the end of this, how do I want myself to feel, but how do I want other people to feel off the back of that?
Cool.
And I think something that happens when you get trained in music or when you study music is that you get really like tied to this idea of sticking to rules and sticking with certain like ideologies, which might be staying within a key or a time signature or whatever. And I find that that's a really boring way to put restrictions on music. Like music is one of those things, it's one of the only things in the whole world that's immeasurable. You can't measure what it does to you. There's not a unit for what it makes you feel. And I think if you have a good understanding of music, it's kind of your obligation to make that as extreme as it can be. Like, I don't want people to feel ambiguous about my music. I want them to really feel something. So I think about that as the start point, and then I kind of reverse engineer. So with the opening track for this record, L1, I'm from that kind of generation of listening to a record from start to finish, and the whole thing should really feel like it should feel like an adventure, like the whole thing should really feel like a journey. So I kind of thought with that, I want people to feel drawn in, and I want them to feel a little bit confused, but they should also want to kind of continue on to the next thing. So in that respect, I always think to kind of pull people in, you've got two options. You either go for the whimsical, like slow burn intro, or you smash them in the face with something. And so I was kind of like, well, I've done the smashing in the face for 5 years. So let's kind of like try the nice paddy synths, and I've developed that. And then it's a case of working out which instruments will achieve the thing I'm trying to achieve. And then off the back of that, like I said, I spent so much time studying music that I generally can work out the sound in my head and then put that into an instrument, if that's bass or keys or the voice or whichever that may be. And then I kind of let some of the organic work happen. I don't really like to like just say, this is the song's on piano, so it'll stick with piano. I think that's like a bit restrictive, and another reason why I didn't want this to be limited by like a live band. I wanted this to be just like everything I wanted it to be. If it's changing instruments every 2 bars, or panning left to right, or using like odd stereo image stuff. So yeah, it's just a bit of like a little bit of planning, and then letting the kind of feelings do the work a little bit after that, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a really good approach. What is your sort of go-to? Have you got like sample packs and things that you're using in order to like do string embellishments and things like that? Have you got like a go-to set that you kind of use? And
good question as well. So prior to this, I'd never produced my own record at all, and I was fairly basic with Logic, to be honest. So the DAW that I use is Logic, and I wanted to try stay away from sample packs as much as I could, because I think it's quite a cheap way to kind of trick people. I know that might sound a bit kind of like couth, but I do think that if you're going to put that much time into something, you need to like really like be inside of it, sort of thing. So I ended up like making all my own 808s, and like creating the drum sounds and making the synth patches and stuff. So I ended up actually doing all of that myself. There's, I think, like 3 bits of samples that I took from packs. One was a kick, because I just knew I could never get the sound I wanted, and it was in a pack. So but I did a lot of like post-edit sculpting on that kick, to justify my previous comment. And then outside of that, there was a couple of vocal samples that I had edited, but they weren't really from sample packs. They were basically just like royalty free samples that I knew I could manipulate quite heavily. So I really tried to just like be the whole thing. I wanted it to have that much weight to it.
And so did you say that I know that you said you hadn't done your own album before, but have you been involved in production? Because it's very well produced.
Thanks. Not really, to be honest. I mean, I've only ever used Logic to track guitars prior to that, but with
That's
the
impressive.
job thanks. But with the job that I've got, I kind of took this job so that I could tour for like 3 months of the year. So I had like 3 months of time to like really study Logic properly and learn how to use it as a tool instead of as a way just to capture guitar parts. So I'd spent like probably 4 or 5 months like really studying like hours every day on how to use it properly. And then I managed to kind of get it to a point where I could mix it to a level where I was like happy to give it to like a quote unquote a real mixing engineer. And then that was Ian McLeod that did the final mixing and mastering, and that was much more to do with like the nuance of how it was mixed instead of making it just sound good. So but I've worked with Ian for like 15 years in various projects. I've known him since I was like 17, and there's no one that knows my musical brain like he does. And he doesn't like, he gets how out there or how simple or how minimalist or whatever it is, like he just gets what I'm trying to do with music. And I think you need that element of trust when you're giving something so precious to someone to kind of add the final touches to. And he nailed it. He really did an amazing job.
Yeah, I think it's got the benefit of having lots of space, so there's room to maneuver, and if you've got somebody like that behind you, you're onto a winner. I think the hardest thing sometimes can be that you make music in that way, and then you send it over to someone to mix it, and they want to really put their own flavor on it. They want everyone to go, it has to have their own sort of like, flavor, and then it goes to the mastering guy, and he wants to do the same thing. So when you actually get it back, you're like,
diluted massively.
This wasn't what I had in mind at all, so
that's a really good point, because I think if you don't have faith in the people that you work with, it just highlights how much of a percentage of the thing you get is of what you planned it to be. Like, obviously I could have paid whoever to go and mix this and it would have their name on it, but it wouldn't be what I wanted in the end. And I think you can only make what it is that you want. If you try to do it to please other people, it won't please you, and it will never please everyone. So you need to really just do the thing that's going to make you proud of it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's nothing better when you get it back and it actually sounds better than what you thought.
100%.
So many times you get it back and you're like, "What is this?
yeah.
What have you done?" So, the Venn relationship then, is that? I presume that's from from old? You know these guys?
So not really.
No? Oh no,
this is
okay.
a funny story, because it's like, I've been in DIY touring bands since I was like 18. I've been the guy that books the tours, drives on them, TMs them. I've been that guy for so long that I gave up on the label thing so long ago. And like Frontier, my main band, we turned down like the biggest labels in the industry because the deal wasn't right. And we've always just kind of thought, if you're going to be signed to someone, then you need to really get a good part of that relationship. Like there needs to be something good out of that. And so like I knew Ven for like I knew they existed for years and years, and obviously like Lags and Gallows were the biggest punk band in the world at one point. So always been on the kind of radar. But when I put this all together, I knew there was a label out there for it, and I basically had like three in mind. One of them was Ven, the other one was Warped, but that would never ever happen. And then anything to do with like Brain Feeder, but again, an unknown artist really, so I knew they would never happen. So I did it the old-fashioned way. I submitted demos to Lags, and he was a bit like, he loved the demos, but he said he didn't know what to do with it, because he's very much in the kind of punk, grime, alt rock kind of thing. And then he asked to get the full record when it was done, and I sent it back to him, and he was like, I love it, I still don't know what to do with it. Have you got any suggestions? And we worked out a way that we can kind of do something together.
Well, that's awesome. It's a tricky thing. I mean, we being Broken Bricks have released. I mean, me and Warren have been working together for years, but this particular project, Broken Bricks, is I mean, it's 2 years old, but it's brand new to the world. We've only got 2 singles out, and we haven't even got to that point of even management, labels, or anything like that. And I know it trying to find the right one, trying to find that one at the right time, to call a place home and all that kind of thing is a really tricky thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. And it depends on the genre a lot of the time as well, I think. And I've always been such a flag flyer for being DIY, but I think at some point you kind of have to concede that some people do know more than you. Like, that's just a fact.
And also as well, if you do everything DIY, you have to bear in mind that you are now the marketing department, the PR department, you're the admin person, you're the producer, the mixer, the musician, the writer, and at some stage, the thing that you really love that you started doing, which was picking up the guitar or picking up that synth and messing around with it, has bloomed into this job.
Yeah, exactly.
That actually takes you away from doing that stuff.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
I was talking to Warren just about this the other day. I was saying, look, I think we need to find a label, because the DIY bit's great, but I want to get back to playing some music. I want to get back. We're so heavily involved in videos, photo shoots, and just trying to bang the drum, get the right PR team involved, and all this kind of stuff that we're not making any music.
Yeah, exactly. And
I'm like, dude, I just I don't put the album out and just keep making music. I'd rather do that.
Right.
So they do certainly have their value. Plus, it opens up more doors, right? If you're backed by a legit.
Undeniably, and also like, again, like the genre sort of thing makes a big difference. So like in the DIY kind of punk or hardcore sort of world, you drop someone a Facebook message that you're touring in Greece and say, hey, can I stay on your floor? 9 times out of 10, you'll get that. In the electronic world, it's not that. It's a very, very different sort of sphere. Right. And so like there's this kind of need to have a bit of a polished edge with it. And a label and having Rolling Stone on board and all these kind of things in place just kind of lets that have the platform that I think the album deserves, instead of me like begging folk to listen, which is, I'm done doing that. I've done that half my life. So I'm over doing that now. So I think it was just a combination of all those things. And ultimately I knew that Lags had the best intention for the record, and that's all I really wanted from a label, to be honest.
I don't know if it was Lags we were talking to, but a while ago, so the band that we're in now actually started out as Bricks, which was a 3-piece post-hardcore band.
Nice.
Very, very much. Well, as I said to you before, Warren's very much kind of like, Ven, and he was talking to Ven Records at the time.
Yeah.
He was also talking to Frank Carter, I think, as well.
Cool.
But at the time that we were having those conversations, we didn't have an album yet, and then literally we got to the point of getting the album. We did the album, which it's like, it's been live for a few years, and then the bassist left, and then we were just like, we just couldn't get somebody else to fill the spot that was right. And then time passed, and then we were like, we carried on making electronic music, and then the next thing you know, we're doing Broken Bricks. And it just kind of got left. And I think we still want to kind of go and breathe some life back into that. So
nice, yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it was. Really, I loved it. I was drumming, so drumming in a hardcore band was.
That was fun.
Yeah. It's. Yeah, some of the gigs were just crazy. Yeah, stupid stuff going on. But yeah, it was really cool though. So that kind of hardcore scene, I kind of got a flavor of it. That post-hardcore scene, Minor Threat type.
Cool.
Type
yeah.
Yeah. So, but then it kind of the conversations with Ven fizzled out, and then we ended up doing this. So.
It's quite hard because you really need to like capture the lightning when you're at that stage of an act where you're like still technically a development act. You've got your first release, but there's a bit of buzz. Like you can't really take the foot off the gas for like a year. Really, like everything has to be lined up so that you've got all this stuff. And that was something I was feeling. Like you were just saying there, sometimes it can feel a bit like a job when the creative part's done and then it's all administrational. Like, I mean, I finished the music for this in like January, I think, maybe even December. And so like since then I've been doing videos, photo shoots, planning PR, doing stuff for like American companies. And I'd spent like 2 months not even listening to the record. And so now I'm kind of at the stage where it's full circle and I can just like enjoy all of that stuff. But unless you have it, a lot of people tend to not pay attention because you need this constant drip feed of activity happening.
Yeah. Do you get PR involved? I suppose does that come off the back of Ven, or are you just literally just doing most of it yourself?
So I was like fully DIYing all the PR and so like the Rolling Stone thing, they had covered Frontierer before we ended up in their magazine, so I had to contact through that, and then all the other press was just me mailing out people I've worked with in the past, and then I think there's a portion of the back end that Lags does that kind of works with Wall of Sound PR, and I think there's maybe a couple of like blog sort of things out of that. But generally I've always done PR myself as well, so I've got the big old spreadsheet with emails in it, like the old days.
Though sometimes it's strange, like when we did the Bricks one, we did I think a bit of our own PR and then got picked up by Clash magazine. They did a really nice, review and an article and all that kind of stuff. And then we just got told no by everybody else. How can Clash? Not everybody else. We got a couple of other articles and stuff, but then you're like, Clash could pick it up, and then you've got this sort of, other outlet that you think would be suitable, and they're like, no, it's not for us, I think.
Definitely. And so an important lesson to anyone that's listening there is that a PR company will have the same results but charge you £500 a month for it, and that's the difference. All they're doing is mailing out. Same thing. And I guess there's two things. You don't get to hear the no's. So it's like, and they, the time. You get to put time into something else while they're doing the same thing. And also, I guess if you get the right PR company, they've already got a foot in the door with the usual suspects. Right? I mean, there's definitely pros and cons, but it is very much down to like the flavor of the week in terms of what's popular music-wise at that time, and also how high up the chain is your PR agent, because if they're not very high up, they're also getting ignored every day. So when I kind of worked that out about 5 or 6 years ago, I just stopped paying for PR. I kind of did it for a few bands I was in, but I've been pretty lucky off the back of that. And I mean, that sounds quite entitled, but obviously the bands I've been in have been with people that are incredibly talented, so it helps that the bands are good. But
of course, that's the first thing.
Definitely.
You need good music, otherwise it doesn't matter how good you are. Well, saying that though, I don't know. There's some stuff that's out on the radio at the minute that I'm like, Jesus,
questionable.
This is a killer PR company, because I don't know where this is going. So in terms of like the management side of things, what kind of got you into management, and how, what do you have, like, particular artists that you look after, or are you kind of like not really, genre open type of thing, or what how long has it been going for, and all that kind of stuff?
Fairly broad. So I basically, my degree was a mixture of music business and composition, but kind of more focused on composition, and then in the final year is kind of setting you up to be like self-employed in the music industry. So I always had quite a bit of an interest in it, and I've always played music that is not very commercial. So you always have the hard road, really. And so that inherently means that you have to learn a lot about how the industry works so that you don't kind of get done over. So that was kind of ingrained into my early music career. And then I was in a band that did not too badly, and I was still kind of finding my feet in terms of like tour management and learning how like back end works for like if you're on a tour, for example, and like all your finances end up disappearing, like why has that happened? And so learning how to kind of deal with like payments and how merch works, and basically just doing like the DIY tour thing. So I did that for like 3 or 4 years, and then a couple of bands asked if I would do it for them, and I was like, well, yeah, I don't know really what I'm doing, but sure, if you know less, then fine. And then they paid me a little bit, and that was kind of like local bands in Glasgow. And then that kind of scaled up to like regional touring bands. And then I had listened to a podcast with one of the guys from And So I Watch You From Afar, and they had kind of gotten away from their management. They weren't really happy with it. And I've always been a big believer of like just taking the biggest shot you can and seeing what happens. And I didn't think for a second that I would even get a response from the band, but I just Instagrammed Rory, their guitar player, and I was like, I heard that podcast. I know you're like, they were actually in Glasgow like 2 weeks after that, really randomly, part of a tour. And so I'd went down to the gig, had a chat with the band, kind of gave them my credentials and what I'd done, and they were like, if you're really keen, then we'll fly you over to Belfast and we'll do it properly next week. We'll have a real proper sit down talk.
Nice.
So we did that, and I spent like a year working with those guys, and so that was like quite a big jump, because I mean all the acts I had done prior to that were either unsigned or DIY, or kind of in that middle ground of like just making enough money to get by. But And So I Watch You, I've like literally toured all over the world. They've got stuff in Billboard, and they've played with like Dave Grohl's other kind of projects and stuff, stadium band sort of thing. And so I basically was running a management business for like 3 or 4 years, and tour managing and doing all the kind of like umbrella stuff for a band that want to go from being just like we're playing crap local venues to now doing national tours to then international tours. So in that kind of development to kind of stable sort of act. And so I did that for like 4 or 5 years, and then Frontier kind of came under that as well when I joined that band. And so that we've kind of I when I got this job lecturing up here in Aberdeen, I kind of disbanded the business, and unfortunately kind of gave up management for everyone except Frontier. And so now I kind of like co-manage Frontier with the other guy that writes all the music. So like you said before, it's like at some point it stops being fun and really becomes a grind. And at some point I'd worked out, I was working 70 hours a week. I was either on tour away from home, or when I was at home glued to a computer. And after years of that, I was just so fried. I was just burnt out with the whole thing. And and so I was like, well, if I change things up, I get to talk about music, play music all day, and then I get my time to tour separately. And that's like a great balance, I think.
Yeah. Well, talking about touring, how are you going to go live? Or are you going to go live?
I've been asked quite a bit about that as well, and I don't have a good answer at the moment.
Well, it's either one or the other. You either go with an army, or you go with a sample pad, or, like a SPDS and just somehow perform. Well, I mean, what I quite like about what you've done is, video wise, like videos are a pain in the arse, really. I for some reason can't ever think of a good idea for a video. I don't know why it is. It's just like this mental block that I have. I'm like, I just can't think of anything. Some people are really good at it, but what I like about what you've done there is the conversation that we were having with Warren. I was like, how do we just keep it nice and simple, but make it effective? And then I saw the video that you'd done. I was like, you just basically just one shot, some effects, and it works.
It's
how did I not have that idea? It's so frustrating.
Yeah, again, all the DIY thing. It's like, how can you do the lowest budget, highest output thing? And not that that looks like phenomenal or like some high-end fashion thing, but it suits the music a bit. And it was literally two angles, like one of me staying still and then a camera moving across in a cross shot, put them together, layer it, my head splits in two, boom, we've got a music video.
I was like, damn it. Now I can't have that idea.
You can have it. It's fine. It's not copyrighted. The visual side of things is tough. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't actually know what I'm going to do. I just filmed like a kind of like remote live thing with Adam, and so that'll be going out through a really nice American company that I can't say just yet, one of those annoying things, but yeah, it'll be out soon. But yeah, that was one of those like lockdown live quote unquote things where you do your separate parts, put it together and mix it. So that gave me a taste of it, but it's so difficult because with this kind of music, there's like a real sort of grandiose factor to it. Like you can't really get by with a lo-fi version of this. It has to kind of be like the Bjork, Arca, Aphex, like Bon Iver, big visual sort of thing. I would hate to do this and it just be like like a bed sheet with a projector. Like I can't think of anything worse than like a crap version of what I'm trying to do. So I've actually been speaking to like a musical director friend of mine about how to kind of set up the personnel at the very least, because when I did this with Adam, like I had to have two stacked synths going into a looper pedal and then a separate pedal board for the guitar chain and then backing tracks through the laptop. And so all of that coming together with a click track, it's quite a lot of pressure and it doesn't really give much space for it to be like a live experience. It's very like literally metronomic. It's hard for it to have a bit of life about it. So I don't know if I would do it that way as the one-man show thing, but it worked for what we did. But yeah, I think I'd basically need like a kind of percussionist, a keyboardist with stacked keys. I would have to do guitars, bass, and any vocal work, backing vocals, a drummer, and then maybe some form of like electronic sort of musician. So I mean, you'd need 7 or 8 people before
exactly
a person.
it's mad, isn't it? Yeah, you end up with an army and you're like, okay, how much is this costing?
Yeah, exactly. And truth be told, it's like the record's done well in as much as it's been listened to a lot, but if anything, like something I've learned over the years is that doesn't necessarily translate to people turning up to gigs. That's not really what that means. That means people attach something to a record that they listen to, but I would need to sell out like a 2,000 capacity hall to pay off what I'd like to do, and that's just not going to happen at the moment. So I don't know, I'd love to. It's definitely in the pipeline, and I'm thinking about it quite a lot. But also I've only got 27 minutes of music. That record's a 27-minute piece of music, so
you can just hit a synth though for a while and really build the crowd up.
Just extend it on both sides, make it free form for a bit.
Exactly. We've all been there. But I think I'm going to give it another couple of spins anyway when we finish on here. And it's really you should check out those other bands, the BC Camplight and stuff like that, because either I'm imagining it or at least it gives me that same kind of feeling.
That's cool. Yeah,
but
quite hard to kind of get the influences to come through. I'd read a review from the Skinny actually the other day, and they had said that the influences are apparent but they're never plagiarized, and I liked that because that's kind of like what my intention was. Like I wanted it to sound similar to some artists, but not like I've just fully nicked their whole thing, because
don't do a Noel Gallagher on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's inevitable that if you listen to a certain kind of music or artist or whatever enough, you can't not have some of it come through in some way, shape or form. Like that's where creativity, I think, starts. It's kind of like that you emulate and then you put your own flavor on it and then it becomes your own thing.
Yeah. 100%.
So, and I think that can stand up for like, even if you love metal music and you pick up a piano, somewhere in there, the way that you structure those chords or the sequences or something there'll be some sort of element of it. And I think that's the really good thing. Like if when you're doing music like this, it shines through that you've got those influences and that you're able to put them together in a way that is unique. So you can't actually you can hear them, but you can't pin it to them. You know, you can't go, oh yeah, that's this. That's clearly that. You know, like, oh, you're just trying to do another one of those.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad. There's a track on that record called Voices that's like the clear Bon Iver influence, but that was the one where I was speaking with Ian, the mixing engineer, where I was like, man, you need to be honest. Like, if this sounds like a rip-off Bon Iver, just tell me straight. I need to hear it. But I think we dressed up enough that it wasn't just as much as that. But
yeah, and who did you have? Adam wasn't on Stutter, was he?
No, so that's Ian Maciak. So
Ian Maciak's on there. Okay.
Ian's
Is that live drums then? Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, okay.
He played that.
Wow, he's tight.
So yeah, incredible. So if anyone doesn't know Ian Maciak, he's the guy that wrote and performed the drum parts for Machine Drum's A View of You record, like the biggest thing in electro last year. And I was trying to program a breakbeat and it was just sounding so bad. Like I couldn't even pass it off as like experimental. It just wasn't very good. So I got really annoyed with that whole process and found Ian on Instagram and emailed him the track. And I was like, I know you're really busy and you're a high caliber artist, so I won't take offense if you say no, but if you like it, man, it'd be awesome to get you on.
Yeah.
And within like an hour, he had listened to it, he loved it, and he said, yeah, I've got a couple of ideas, just send me the kind of session and I'll do something.
Oh, nice.
And so he had sent back like four different types of break beats for the sections, and then he gave me some fills. So he wanted it to be quite collaborative. So he was basically like, if you can edit, which I'd kind of learned how to do, then put some of these fills in within these break beats and see what you can come up with, because it can be quite experimental that way. So we had kind of like meshed some of these ideas together, put them together, and it fit in perfectly around those like slow industrial beats. So I'd done them separately as their own thing, and then we had put in his breakbeat and jungle sort of work around it. And I just couldn't believe that a human could play that. Like,
it's really tight.
I didn't need to nudge a single note. Like the whole thing was like dead on, and got really light touch as well, which I quite like with that style of music as well.
Yeah, that's what I kind of like about Adam as well. You know, he's super tight, but you can hear the little cymbal bits that he leaves on toms and that's letting you know that it's not a machine doing this.
That's right.
Like there's a little squeaks and bumps and little 100%. Bits. And it's awesome stuff. But,
I'm so obsessed with rhythm. Like I said to you before, like I've just been like rhythmically like drawn to anything that's unique or interesting, like my whole life, any style of music, whatever it is. And the first time I saw Adam doing his own thing, I was just like, man, I didn't even realize that you could like live time Ableton with triggers, all of these different parts of the kit. And it was like, imagine you'd never heard an orchestra. To me, it was like that the first time I saw him. And
that's what I felt like. It's like, wait, how he's changing the cymbals on the snare while he's playing. It's like, da, 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 and he's changing out cymbals. I'm like,
I know,
because I was drumming at the time for Bricks. I was just like, throw them in the bin. I don't need those anymore. Like, what is the point?
It almost feels like derogatory to call it drumming when you talk about him, though, because it's not that. It's like this percussive masterclass. It's so next level. And so Ian Maciak, I felt the same with for
well, it's super tight. I've not really checked him out, to be honest. I need to do more, because when it came on, I was like, oh, this is kind of. It sounds like something Adam would play on, but it didn't sound like Adam. I was like,
that's right.
So I didn't know if he'd programmed it or not, or that's why I asked the question.
Initially I'd thought he would maybe do something like that, but he was going for a bit more of like a groove orientated thing instead of something a bit more manic. And I also need to mention Finlay Marnell was one of the other songwriters for a couple of those songs. He had these really unique sort of ideas around like soft chords that came from a guitar but sound like a synth, and I'd kind of like built a big bunch of it around that kind of idea, and it worked really well with Ian, so I was really happy with how that came out.
So he's playing live guitar into like a synth pedal board or something, is he?
Kind of, yeah. So Finn is a percussive guitar player by trade, much like the Mike Dawes, who's the other guy, Andy McKee or John Gom, any of those very kind of percussive guitar players, and a songwriter and singer primarily, but he's always been into like old DJ Shadow and Aphex, and he's always tried to integrate a bit of that, but he's never had like a suitable sort of means to do it. So I went to uni with him. I've known him for like 12 or 13 years. So finally I've got a project I could shoehorn him into. So he came to me with so with Stutter, it was that subby paddy sort of thing at the beginning, and then the acoustic guitar put through a Strymon, which is like the best reverb pedal in the world, pretty much. And you can just manipulate it live time, and then I manipulated it in edit, and it just turned into these like big beautiful synthy pad sort of sounds, but it came from an acoustic guitar. And we just kind of developed that, and much like that other track James that he had written, I had deconstructed something that he had given me for that one.
No, it sounds wicked. It really layers together very nicely.
Thanks. Yeah.
Has Six Music picked this up? Or like
they haven't. I sent it through to who's their producer. I sent it through to the Radio 6 producer, and they said that it was a little too electronic for them.
Really? I'm surprised by that, because as soon as I heard it, I thought, this is going to end up on Six Music for sure.
Yeah, I was gutted. I would have loved it to have gone on. I maybe need to try another producer, because I think they're quite picky depending who you get for the for the DJ themselves. Their producer can be a bit picky about what they put forward. So I might need to give Lags a bit of a nudge on that. But I mean, there's been some pretty good radio coverage as is. I mean, I got loads of stuff on Amazing Radio. I got a heavy rotation in Switzerland, had the same in Germany, and then a bunch of like local sort of Scottish stations as well. So somehow it's really weird to get to like 32 and then get signed and then have the commercial release. It's like usually you start there and then everything turns to crap. So I've kind of done it the wrong way around, but it's amazing anyone kind of cares about it. I'm really happy about that.
Cool. Well, it's been awesome to have you on, mate. Thank you very much for jumping on. Where can people find you? Socials.
All over. So if you want to listen to the music, the project's called Lift. The record is called There Is Beauty in Everything, and anywhere you listen to music, you'll be able to find that. If you want to watch a video for Zauer, that's on YouTube, just Lift Official, and then Instagram is _Lift Music. Facebook is Lift Official as well. And if you just type my name, Dan Stevenson, and Lift, you'll find stuff everywhere. So. Cool.
Well, I hope you find a way of taking it live, because I'd love to come and see what you can put together, especially if Adam turns up as well.
I need to convince Adam that he's the only guy that can do it.
Yeah. But I could. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely hear it. I think it was. But you're right. It needs to be the right spectacle. It deserves, the right kind of show. So
I think so. Yeah, definitely.
That's over to you on that one.
I appreciate that, though, man. It's so cool to chat about something that I've made with people that genuinely like it. So yeah, man, it's very much.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, keep it going. It's awesome. Thanks, cool, man. Well, I'll leave you to it. But yeah, thank you again for jumping on, and we'll keep in touch.
Nice one. Cheers.
All right, man.
Cheers, bye.
Cheers, man.